Let me show you how I make a granny square. I like my clusters to be a little bit more close together than a traditional granny square so that the holes in between clusters are a little bit smaller. So let me show you my method. Start by chaining 4 and then slip stitch into the first chain to form a circle. You can also use a magic ring if you prefer that method. Now chain 3, that counts as your first double crochet, and then work 2 more double crochets into your circle. Chain 2, and then work 3 double crochets into your circle. Your set of 3 double crochets is also called a granny cluster. You'll continue to repeat chaining 2 and working a granny cluster 2 more times. Once you've made all 4 sets of granny clusters with a chain 2 in between, slip stitch into the top of your starting chain 3 to close the round. Because I'm going to change colors, I'm also going to chain 1, then I'll snip my yarn, pull it through, and I'll switch to my next color. Attach your next color by tying it on into any of the chain 2 spaces. Chain 3, that counts as a double crochet, and work 2 double crochet into that same chain 2 space. Now chain 2, and work another granny cluster, which is 3 double crochets into that same chain 2 space. When working a granny square, you don't work into the top of any stitch from the previous round. You only work into the spaces in between clusters. So we're going to skip over these 3 double crochets and work in our next chain 2 space, and we'll make another corner. And to do that, we're going to work a granny cluster, then chain 2 to turn, and work another granny cluster, all within that same chain 2 space. And you'll repeat that in the next 2 chain 2 spaces. Again, that's a granny cluster, a chain 2, and a granny cluster. Once you've worked all 4 corners, then slip stitch into the top of your starting chain 3. I'm going to go ahead and switch colors again, so I'm going to chain 1. I'll snip my yarn, pull it through. Now we'll work round 3 and all other rounds, and we're going to begin by tying on our next color. I do recommend that when you tie on your next color into one of your chain 2 spaces from the previous round, you pick a different corner than you just ended. So I just ended in this corner here. I'm going to shift to the next corner to tie on my yarn, and I just find that that helps retain the shape of the square a little bit better when you attach your new yarn in a different corner each round. Chain 3. Your chain 3 is going to be considered a double crochet, and then work 2 double crochet into that chain 2 space. Chain 2, and then work a granny cluster into that same chain 2 space. In the last round, we only had corner spaces to work, but once you get to round 3 and all other rounds, you'll also have spaces along the sides to work as well. When you come to these spaces, work a granny cluster into those spaces, which again is 3 double crochets. Now I'm on round 3, so that means that I only have 1 space to work into, but as you continue to make more rounds, you'll have more side spaces to work into. So just remember that each space you come to along the side, you'll work a granny cluster into that space. Once you've worked granny clusters into all spaces along the side, which again is only 1 for me because I'm in round 3, you're going to work your corner. Just like you made all other corners, you're going to make this corner by working a granny cluster, and you'll chain 2, and then work another granny cluster into that same chain 2 space. Continue to work this around. Work a granny cluster in all spaces along the side, and work a corner, meaning a granny cluster, a chain 2, and another granny cluster in all chain 2 corner spaces until you finish this round. Once you've completed the round, slip stitch into the top of your starting chain 3 to close. Continue to repeat the instructions for round 3 until your square has reached its desired size.